business news, we're news for business people.
Good afternoon and welcome to Bloomberg Quint Live. Here are the headlines. Markets snap a two-day losing streak ahead of the long weekend. All sectoral indices barring metals gain. India VIX slips further. Now, Reliance Infra gains as much as 4% after it signed a binding agreement to sell its Mumbai power business to Adani Transmission for approximately 13,250 crore rupees. Stress in the Indian banking sector remains high, but it may be close to bottoming out. That's according to the RBI's latest financial stability report. India and 127 other nations vote against US's decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital in the UN General Assembly. That's all we have for you with regard to the headlines, but up next is Hot Money with Darshan Mehta. Darshan, over to you.
Thank you, Alex. Hello and welcome to Hot Money on Bloomberg Quint Live, India's first digital live streaming business news service. This is a show which gets you a complete wrap of all the stocks that are buzzing in trade. I'm Darshan Mehta. Let's welcome our experts on the show. Investment advisor Sharmila Joshi and Urmil Shah of IDBI Capital join us on the show. So the stocks that we'll discuss on Hot Money are counters like Reliance Infra, Canfin Homes, Teamlease, L&T, and we'll ask our guest what they believe is the best NBFC stock. But before we start with Hot Money, let's take a look at one of the stocks from the IT pack that came out with their earnings. Accenture has reported a strong set of numbers for the quarter ended November 2017. Does this indicate a better time for Indian industry? Let's ask Urmil. Urmil, you track IT very well. So firstly, what did you make of Accenture numbers and what's the implication for the Indian industry?
Yeah, so clearly Accenture's number augur well as regards the outlook on discretionary spend for next year. There are three things which stood out specifically for the Indian companies. One is Accenture has seen the order book for consulting, gearing up really well. It was almost $6 billion. That means that the discretionary spend is looking up from where it was last year. We also believe that the worst should be over. Secondly, for them, BFS has grown the fastest amongst the key verticals. Most of the large ID companies, apart from TechM, are heavily dependent on that. And second part, as regards the geography, Europe has grown really well, almost 17-18%. So over there, companies like HCL Tech or even TCS has been winning market share. So I think overall these were the three important factors, and as regards the large caps, I think both TCS and HCL, the indicators from Accenture's result match the most with these two companies.
So for an Accenture, if you're looking at the Accenture number, HCL and TCS would be the Indian companies that are most similar to the structure that Accenture has. Okay, so that's the view that we are having on Accenture. The numbers clearly strong, the management increasing, better guidance going ahead. But let's start with Hot Money. The first stock that we'll discuss is Reliance Infra. The stock has been gaining over the past few days. Now it's official that they are selling their entire Mumbai transmission power business to Adani Transmission. What does this mean for Reliance Infra? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? We'll ask our guest. Urmil, any view on Reliance Infra?
So clearly the company is doing what it is needed right now. They are deleveraging first the cement assets, then the road assets, and now the power assets. But we are not very sure that whether they will use this as a benefit and take advantage of the infra spend that will happen more on the EPC side. We are not sure that they will still go back to asset heavy business. And we believe that as regards the play on the infrastructure spend that would come in, there are many EPC players that are available, and also one of the stocks that is Larsen. We are very positive on that. So we would put it as a more news-based trading play, clearly not for investment.
Not for investment. And valuations, it's close to 10 times this year, 8 times next year. Is that a fair valuation for a...
But that is for a reason. ROE is 7-8%, which is very low. So cheap valuation is for a reason.
Okay. That's the view. What about you, Sharmila? What do you make of Reliance Infra? What the transaction that happened and the go way ahead? Because they say now they will become net cash positive and totally debt free. So how does that augur well for the company?
Absolutely. I think, we've discussed this talk, I think, in one of the earlier shows, and that was the talk at that time that if this deal goes through, then it's a definite positive for Reliance Infra. And I think that, what the company said yesterday in terms of the price that it's done at and what it means to bringing down their debt levels, I think that's a definite positive. But I would, largely agree. I think that within the EPC space, you do have better stocks. And so while I'm neutral on the stock, given the fact that this is a good development, they have some good order wins. And, again, I think if you're sort of comparing it with the other stocks within the ADAG basket, then this is definitely a better name than some of the other stocks there. But that said, I think that this is sort of a good development, but it's a little bit of a news-based stock. So I think you need to track it a little more in terms to see whether, the order inflows that come in as well as the execution, how does that bit play out? Because, that has been a problem area for a lot of companies within that space. So I would really wait to see that. But this deal going through is definitely good news.
Okay, and is there any issue that you have with the promoters as such? Because ADAG stocks tend over the period of time tend to be very volatile. So if someone wants to know, is it fine if someone wants to invest in Reliance Infra giving this deal? Is promoter a concern that you would have if you're investing in ADAG?
Well, not really. I mean, I think that definitely the RCOM piece has gone really bad from the promoter point of view. But I think some of their, Reliance Capital, I think, maybe because it's a very regulated, all the businesses within that are very regulated. I would say similarly for Reliance Infra, there is not really, yes, there can be sort of things that can go wrong, but, not to the extent that went wrong, say, in a telecom business.
Okay.
So, it's sort of not the best view that I would have on a management, but that concern for me is not that.
Okay.
For me, the concern is more the way this entire space is, and then within that space, how this stock is placed, and then within that, I would probably again, also prefer a Larsen over a Reliance Infra.
Okay, so that's the consensus view that we're getting in on Reliance Infra. It's a wait and watch for Reliance Infra. They say that we need to find out what exactly the management does with the money that's coming in, what's the future trajectory, and it's a consensus, preference of Larsen and Toubro that both the guests have over Reliance Infra. The other stock that was buzzing yesterday was Canfin Homes. Now, a couple of things that happened. First of all, a note coming out from a brokerage indicating a scenario analysis where they said that, Canara Bank has already indicated that they want to sell stake in it, and HDFC is looking at inorganic activity. So they put 2 and 2 together, indicating that this would make a good fit for HDFC. The counter did manage to rally significantly. The other news that came out overnight, where the bank said that they are looking to sell 4% stake in Canfin Homes and they will retain 26% stake in the company. So what does this mean for Canfin Home? Despite taking the news out, is it a good investment bet for an investor? Sharmila, any view on Canfin? A lot of news yesterday, but news aside,
I think you have to keep the news aside, because HDFC seems to be on a buying spree. There was news that HDFC Bank is buying Manappuram, so I think we have to discount all those kind of news. But I think, just coming to the housing finance business itself is a business that I like. I think that the entire push that we've seen towards affordable housing is what makes me like, the space. And a lot of those stocks haven't done anything for these last 2 months. So I think at some point in time, they will join the kind of mid-cap rally that we're seeing. And in terms of numbers, I think Canfin Homes is okay. Then there was again, I think, a suggestion that the non-salaried class are also slowly, that's where their business has seen an uptick, where, more people from the non-salaried class have started taking loans. So all said and done, I think the environment looks good for affordable housing. And I think that while there is concern, in terms of interest rates, etc., that, you're probably done with interest rates correction and you're not going to see funds becoming cheaper for any of these players. I would still say that housing finance companies are better placed than many of the banks to really get into that space. So I would continue to be positive on Canfin.
Are you okay with the valuations? Because it's not cheap. It's almost close to 4.5 times this year, 3.5 times next year. So in the pecking order, obviously it's lower than HDFC, but it's still more expensive than Dewan Housing or probably an India Bulls would fare around this level only. So on that scale and size.
I would actually prefer LIC Housing Finance more than this. But I think that in terms of valuation, it's also what you're looking at in terms of what kind of growth that they'll get ahead. So which is sort of makes me okay on the valuation.
So you're fair with the valuation?
Yes.
What about you, Urmil? Valuations and the company. Let's leave the news side. I don't know whether that will happen. That was just to indicate what happened with the stock. But news aside, on the fundamentals of the company, what do you make of it, and your view on the valuations?
So one, on this space we are extremely bullish, and we do like Can Fin Home as well. If you look at their track record, they have very strong in the southern market. 89% is the housing book. 74% are salaried and professional, and as Sharmila mentioned that the non-salaried thing is also growing up. And if you look at their performance on the NPA front, just 0.4% has been the gross NPAs, right? And as regards the valuation, because the quality is so good and the ROE is at 23-24%, that's why it has got that valuation. So for any stock where the growth and quality is there, we believe that premium valuation are deserved, and so is for Can Fin Home. So we clearly like this company. And if you look from a longer term point of view, if this company goes to a stronger hand, in fact the re-rating can be even higher.
So it's a consensus bullish view that's coming in on Can Fin Homes. Leaving aside the news, if it happens, it's a big re-rating according to Urmil. But nevertheless, news or no news, its counter seems to have got the 2 thumbs up from both our guests. The next one stock we're talking about is L&T. And the reason that we are talking about L&T is that a few days ago Tata Steel spoke about a big capex that they're looking to expand their Kalinganagar plant. And it's been such a while that such a large capex actually happened. We haven't done, and capex was absolutely at a standstill. So is this the turning point? And probably L&T can benefit because of issues, because of capex revival here also and in the Middle East. So is L&T a good bet? We'll ask our guest Urmil, what do you make of L&T?
Yeah, so from a 1 to 2 year point of view, we clearly believe that it's a good bet. As regards the order book, maybe Q3 or second half also might not be that great, but we believe that the commentary for FY19 will start looking up. And if you look at as regards the financials of the company, if IDPL actually gets demerged, then the earnings, ROE, everything improves. In fact, there could be a J-curve as regards the earnings, we believe, ex IDPL. And that could happen through a REIT or a spin-off, multiple options available over there. So we think over the next 1-2 years, spend in the capex will also come in and translate into order book, and IDPL also, the overhang on the earnings and the ROE will also go away. And from that perspective, we think that this is a very good stock to hold.
But these are the things that are positive. But on this ground, L&T always gives a bullish view. But somehow, when the results come, they always, by the mid of this year, they always tend to cut their guidance. And this is what they did this year also. So that's a trend that's happened for the past few years. So do you believe that, this time around, actually orders will come in? Because Tata Steel is the only one that has given such a big capex. So apart from it, where do you see orders coming in from?
So, the key segments for L&T, from where they get the orders, we are not expecting that any big thing will happen in the second half. But, though, let's say, Tata Steel, they would have also taken time to decide on this capex. That's what is the narrative we expect to come from L&T, that, like steel or, infrastructure, over there, the capex, the discussion on the strategy, everything has started up. So that narrative is what we are expecting in the second half. We are not expecting order book growth to be higher.
You expecting a more of a positive commentary that will come in on this thing. Urmila, do you share the same bullish view that Urmil has on L&T?
I think two things really I want to touch on over and above everything that you've discussed. I think, one big concern for me with this stock used to be, and for this entire space for that matter, used to be the fact that margins were actually contracting. And, if you saw that for L&T margins are contracting, then what would you really expect from the other players within that space? So I think the one good takeaway that we got from the results, in this last quarter was that apart from profitability being up, you saw a marginal improvement even in margin. So which means things are sort of bottoming out. So I take that as a very positive sign for the entire sector and for L&T. And number two, coming to orders, yes, I completely agree. I think that with the view that you will start hearing of more capex. Tata Steel, I would add oil marketing companies, because they've recently got an order from an oil marketing company, and the fact that for the past year and a half, oil marketing companies have been sort of left to themselves. So now they have a strategy and they can sort of work on it. So, there will be, I think, more coming from that space. Again, from the infra space, we've heard a lot in terms of whether it is Bharatmala or whatever. So I think you will start seeing government spend coming from there. So I think that all these positives will first play out for L&T before they do for a lot of players within that space. So I would continue to be positive on it, more from that perspective than really, as you're saying, current earnings or current valuation.
Okay, so it's a consensus bullish view that's coming in on L&T, given the fact that both of them expect the outlook going ahead to be rather positive. The next stock that we're talking about is Team Lease. Now the counter is up almost 16% this week. What seems to be the trigger? What exactly is happening? In fact, it's gone even more higher. So, what's the view that's happening, or what's happening on Team Lease? Is a good bet, Sharmila? Any view on Team Lease? It seems to be going from strength to strength.
Absolutely. I think again this is a stock that we've discussed earlier, and that was the view even at that point in time, that just as like what you said, that if you have a business that's looking good and the possibility looks good, then there is reason to be positive in that space, irrespective of what valuations. So here it's playing out, because I think that you're positive on the the business outlook, that this kind of organized hiring will see a better uptick in the tier 2, tier 3, and everybody's shifting towards that kind of a model, and all your GST and all those concerns are sort of slowly getting factored in. So I think the outlook stays good. For me, valuations is the only concern, honestly, and as you're saying, it is just going from strength to strength.
Okay, what about you, Urmil? Growth versus valuation on Team Lease, what's your view?
Yeah, so we also agree on that front. Clearly the market opportunity is huge given the size of the unorganized sector over here, and not just their existing segments, they can enter into more segments as well. And if you see, the company has a very good track record of both organic growth as well as M&A.
Okay.
So they have delivered growth and also not impacting margins whenever they have done M&A. So the stock has always remained expensive once it has got listed.
Okay.
So 40 times roughly or 37 odd times on FY19 earnings. But we believe that premium valuation would continue till this market opportunity remains and they deliver on the growth.
Okay, any competition concerns for them, or are they the largest one here?
Competition concern is there, but the differentiation as regards the size. I mean, after the top 2-3 guys, the next ones are too small.
Okay.
So there is a lot of consolidation scope available over here.
Okay, so that's the view that's coming in on Team Lease. Sharmila is rather neutral on the counter, but Urmil is indicating a positive view on it. And the last one, since it's Christmas, we'll ask our guest on what they would like to recommend. So we've kept it open. The NBFC sector is something that's doing extremely well. So we've taken the sector as such. So Urmil, I'll start with you. Your top pick in the NBFC space, what are you all recommending?
So as we discussed, housing finance is what we like, but we have discussed one stock from that space. That's why I have not chosen the another pick from there. We also believe that the all gold finance space, the concerns on the regulatory front, also volatility in gold prices is behind. So we like Muthoot Finance over here because they have done reasonable amount of provisioning to take care of any volatility that can come in the gold prices, and also they have de-risked as regards increasing the short-term lending front, which reduces the provisioning requirements. And if you look at the valuation, ability to deliver 20% 8% plus ROE and 2 times price to book. We believe that the valuation is also on the reasonable size. So we like the gold financing space and recommend Muthoot Finance over there.
Okay, so are you all just one question? Muthoot is your preferred pick, but are you bullish only on Muthoot or the entire gold financing space?
The entire gold.
So that means that even like counters like Manappuram and all would be in focus for you all. Okay, so gold financing is something that Urmil is bullish on. Sharmila, which sector or which stock or space would you like in the NBFC sector?
So as you said, there is quite a bit I like in the NBFC space, and really speaking, about a week and a half back, there was this whole discussion going on that possibly, ever since actually we heard the inflation numbers, that you are not going to see an interest rate cut, and therefore things could look bad for NBFCs, and it could be the sort of banks that could look better going ahead, and they could get better business because funds are going to become more expensive for finance companies, and it may not be that attractive for people to avail of taking loans from MFIs, etc. But I think somewhere down the line, this Gujarat election has put a different spin on it, in the sense that people now sense that if after this result you see the government actually spending more in rural areas, then again the NBFC story is sort of back on track, because there will be more spend coming from there, and there will be more people taking loans. So I've chosen to go with Equitas. As I said, there is quite a lot I like within that space, but I think Equitas is one stock which hasn't moved at all. It hasn't really joined the rally.
Okay.
And I feel that their strategy is in place as far as the small finance bank is concerned, and they're going very slowly about building a very sustainable and a strong model. They're focusing on acquiring clients and making those relationships, bringing down their MFI business. So it could take a while for all that to show in numbers, but I think at this current price, for me, Equitas looks like a good buy.
Okay, but are you bullish on the entire small? So would Equitas be on the only one, or are you bullish on that sector as a such?
The sector as a whole, as we discussed, I think even housing finance companies, I would completely agree. I think the focus can be again back, because see, at the end of the day, what I feel is that one reason why all these NBFCs were able to get market share, it's not that the banks are not in any of these businesses, especially housing finance, etc. But they could sort of approach that niche very well and get the customer into their kitty and hold on to them in a better way than these PSU banks could.
Okay.
So, and I don't even see that sort of PSU banks have realized that gap and they're working towards it. So I think all these finance companies, whether you're talking of a Capital First, which has slightly differentiated model, or a gold finance company like a Muthoot or a Manappuram, or an Ujjivan or an Equitas, I think they all have quite a, I think that once you see the growth numbers coming back into their earnings, the story is back on track.
And you see the growth coming back into some
absolutely.
of these NBFCs, because companies like Equitas and Ujjivan had their fair share of problems that happened.
Correct.
So are those concerns now over for you, or have
they're
they
getting
been totally
addressed.
blamed?
I think they're getting addressed, and to a large extent they're now in the price.
Okay, so that's the view that's coming in on the NBFC space. So Urmil is speaking about Muthoot Finance. He likes, apart from the housing finance companies which he already spoke about earlier, the second space that they like is gold finance, and Muthoot Finance is the company that he spoke about. And Sharmila spoke about, she's extremely bullish on the NBFC space, and she spoke about Equitas. She believes that the concerns for some of the NBFCs are getting over, and pretty much growth will be seen going ahead. Before we wrap up on the show, here's a quick recap of all the guest views on the stocks that we've covered till now. Okay, Urmil, Merry Christmas and thanks for coming in. Sharmila, same to you. Greetings for Merry Christmas. Thanks for coming in. With that, it's a wrap on today's Hot Money. And first of all, how can I forget? It's a very Merry Christmas to our viewers also. So it's a wrap on today's Hot Money. Ask BQ comes up next. Stay tuned to Bloomberg Quint.